Finally, some common sense in South Africa's ongoing fight with the USA perhaps could lead to a better relationship. And here's something that we better be concerned about, and that is our municipality taking loans far in excess of what they need. Where does the money end up? And B is here to stay, according to yet another ANC deputy minister. Let's get into it. And before we kick off the Political Insider today, let's give a shout out to our sponsor of this episode, Trade Nation. If you want to trade currencies, commodities, indices, Trade Nation is the platform for you. Any financial instrument, you will find it on the Trade Nation platform. Check it out. Let us know what you think, because they help to keep us on air. And if you're enjoying it and you're finding value out of their platform, it helps us. Let's get into the news today. After so many years of open antagonism with the USA, which has led to the ill-fated, there was never shown better than with the ill-fated appointment of Ebrahim Rasool as a South African ambassador, a move that was designed to kill that relationship. It seems like the penny has finally dropped, that kind of attitude is not very helpful for South Africa and what South Africa needs to achieve. For America, it makes very little difference. But it has just been announced that former apartheid-era Constitutional Affairs Cabinet Minister and one-time Cyril Ramaphosa bestie, Rolf Meyer, has been appointed as South Africa's ambassador to the US. Now, on the face of it, the first step is that in these strangely charged times in which we live, Rolf Meyer is a white person that can't do any harm to the people currently in power in the USA, who seem to be as obsessed with color as our government is. But most importantly, he doesn't appear to openly hate the USA, which has been a hallmark of our last ambassadors for the past 20 years, where it seemed like that was a factor in appointing the ambassador, right? Especially Ebrahim Rasool. They tried to inflict him on the USA twice. They didn't want him in Cape Town, but apparently Washington was dying to have him. Now he assumes the role just as the US officially hosts the G20 summit later this year. Now remember, after South Africa hosted the G20 summit last year, President Donald Trump has purposefully excluded South Africa and from the G20 summit. And, it was just one of the outcomes of the problems, the diplomatic problems that we've got with the US. President Donald Trump also pressurized France, who's hosting the G7 summit, which is a far smaller, more concentrated event for just the top 7 economies of the year, where South Africa has often been invited as an observer. Well, we were disinvited by President Macron, and he issued the invitation to Kenya in our place, just to show how South Africa has slipped in the eyes of the West. Now, there's clearly a thawing of the relationships between South Africa and the US, because we saw just a few weeks back that President Cyril Ramaphosa accepting the credentials, in other words, allowing the US ambassador Leo Brent Bazell III, a rather grand name, to assume the position as the US ambassador. This was despite the fact that our DIRCA, our international relations body, couldn't wait to issue a démarche on Ambassador Bazell after he had said at a conference that he didn't care whether a judge had said kill the Boer was legal. He didn't think it was okay. And, the guy had virtually not put his feet into the country, and he was dragged into the principal's office. It seems like those relationships have thawed, and now we have an ambassador in the US, which hopefully they can live with, and they have an ambassador in South Africa that hopefully the South Africans can live with, and hopefully this leads to improved relations. Why? Because America remains our largest target market for our exported goods. I know that China takes a lot of stuff from South Africa, but it's mainly raw materials. The US takes cars, they take wine, they take fruit, they take all sorts of things from South Africa that creates a lot more jobs than mining, which is just extractive, put on a boat, and away it goes. To China, we buy fridges in its place. So it's a good move for South Africa, especially South Africa is awash with American products, usually at the higher end. Many of you are watching this show on Apple products, etc., using a lot of software that is American. It is important that we have a working relationship with the USA. We don't need to love them. We don't need to agree with everything they do. But I think it's a step in the right direction if we just stop antagonizing them and fighting with them. We are little, they are large. They will win that fight. Okay, before we get on to our next story, I've got to tell you about our exciting breakfast event that we're going to have. And it's a State of the Nation breakfast, which is being held in Sandton on the 6th of May, featuring Dr. Frans Cronje, South Africa's international relations expert, and a man also whose company conducts some of the most accurate polling in the country. And he will be joined on stage by Bonsai Shongwe. Who doesn't love to hear from Bonsai? Always coming out with an interesting view of South African life. You'll get to interact with all of these people and enjoy a good breakfast. Come in, support the State of the Nation. You'll get details on our website at sona.co.za. There'll also be a link in the comment section below. Right, so we know that in South Africa we haven't been very good in managing our water, whether it's clean, dirty, or otherwise. We get a lot of it from other countries, like poor old Lesotho. We drain them dry and then lose most of it because of broken pipes here in Gauteng. But a bigger problem is looming. This one will create a real health crisis, and that is water treatment. We all flush toilets, that goes into water systems, and that is then meant to go in a separate pipe to a water treatment plant where it is then treated, cleaned, and hopefully put back into the water system as water that can be used again. Well, it turns out that 47% of our water treatment systems are in a critical state, and the numbers have obviously dramatically risen in the Ramaphosa era. Since 2021, it's risen dramatically. Now, I saw a little report hidden over there that says that our municipalities have secured 34 billion rand in capital funding for wastewater projects. But the problem is that it was estimated that only 13.3 billion rand was needed to fix these plants. So what's the deal here? Why are we getting 20 billion rand more in financing to fix up our wastewater plants than what we need? Well, really, if you think about it, there's only three reasons why we would do that. One is that, something like fixing up or refurbishing a water treatment plant needs BEE partners, and that's where the comrades get into the game, and that's where they make their money. They get a little prezi, 30% tagged on top of the price. So it is important that Edwin Sodi and people like that get their inflated tenders passed for work to fix up the plant, and maybe even they fix up the plant. It's an outside chance, but it could happen. That's number one, why you need more money than what you actually need. Right, and then the money may be raised in the name of fixing wastewater treatment systems, but it's very easy for local government to then use the money in any way they like. And which municipality politician doesn't need a new German SUV? Everybody needs something. And here you've raised the money ostensibly to fix a wastewater treatment plant, and then you just spend it on something else. And then the most important reason is just remember that the comrades themselves never have to pay the money back. Who has to pay the money back? You and me, the taxpayer, because it may be taken in the name of some municipality, but it's national debt. At the end of it all, the country has to pay it back. And where does the country get its money back? From mugs like you and I. So they can take as many of the loans as possible spend the money on whatever they need to spend the money. Then they can say, "Eish, we didn't know. Oh, I didn't realize we had to pay it back." And especially in these precarious political times where it seems like many municipalities may change hands. So take the money now, spend it on whatever you want to spend it on, and then hand over power if voters decide to hand it over. And if you get bust for your scam, well, you just resign and nothing ever happens to you. So to me, a very, very dangerous thing. And who would want to work for the Auditor General or be the Auditor General that eventually has to go to parties and say, "Guys, you borrowed X amount of money to fix the wastewater treatment, and here the thing is, and it still doesn't work." That is the problem that we have in this country. And I must say, it's alarming when you see that water treatment plants are being used as an excuse to raise all of this finance. This is not stuff that's coming out of the national budget. This is money that's coming out of private institutions that will get their money back, even if it means that you and I have to pay more for VAT or any other way that they can get their money back. So it's a worrying development. I am sure that our water treatment, our water queen, Phemi Majidina, the Minister of Water, has got a handle on this. She looks so competent. I mean, remember, she fixed up the water problems in Johannesburg. Yeah, right. A really concerning one. I'll tell you what else we know is that BE is here to stay. Now we hear from Deputy Minister of Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation, Joel Mohai, who has doubled down on BE. He was speaking at a BE symposium at the University of Johannesburg, where he said it's not an optional policy, but it's critical for redressing the past. You see, the ANC can't offer us a future. They can only offer us a worse past. That's all they can do. And he debunked several of the misleading narratives about the policy, which linked the lack of economic growth to our race-based laws. Well, Deputy Minister Mohai, how do you then answer the direct link between the increase in the imposition of the laws of BEE and the lack of economic growth? The two are linked, right? We hear from investors. How many more investors have to tell you that they see this as a problem to investment before you admit that BEE does cost us economic growth? He also said that the opposition to BEE had distorted reality by saying BEE had only benefited a few people. We've got 50% unemployment. Where's the many people that you see benefiting from this disastrous policy? It is time. It is time for us to reconsider, because then the Deputy Minister comes out with the usual kicker. And that is the kicker, which is pay. Pay, baby, pay. And he called on the IDC, the Industrial Development Corporation, the National Empowerment Fund, the Development Bank of South Africa, and the Land Bank to increase lending to BEE companies. What could possibly go wrong with that idea? Now, I understand that this isn't the Minister of Finance. It's a Deputy Minister in Performance Monitoring and Evaluation, and their leader has just stolen SUVs from the ANC. So we understand the importance of this policy, but it is all pervasive within the ANC that believes that this policy is somehow going to do the same thing that has failed in countries like Malaysia, like Indonesia. All of these countries that have tried this false economic laws that just don't work. And finally, let's just close off with a little trip to the Madlanga Commission. And it's more about the individual than about what he had to say. And that is the highly compromised former Ekurhuleni Metro Police Chief, Julius Mkhwanazi, who was back at the commission. And what was the first thing that happened? Well, listen to this one. You'll really like this. Mkhwanazi was meant to be at the Madlanga Commission a few weeks back. And he said he can't attend because he has to go to the funeral of his mother. And of course, everybody is going to say, absolutely, delay granted. They move the date out. Only to hear when he gets to the commission that it's actually not his mother at all who passed away. The woman is only 10 years older than him, and at best seems to be a stepmother, but it's a bit unclear. Mkhwanazi then doesn't say, well, he regarded her as a mother. He said he didn't know. He thought she was his mother. Did you not perhaps think when you were the same age that perhaps the woman ain't your mother? But this guy is a habitual liar. It's things like this that aren't doing his cause any good. And Julius Mkhwanazi will, in the fullness of time, see the inside of the jail. Please, Lord, let it happen soon. Well, thank you so much for joining us on the Political Insider today. Please subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you again with more news soon.